Well, let's jump right into it. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, friends. This is Sonic Perspectives with Scott Medina, talking with Trevor Rabin today. And very excited to talk to you about this new album, Trevor, that is just coming out next week. Yeah. So we're really going to dive into it, and welcome to Sonic Perspectives.
Well, it's great to be here. Great to join you and have a chat.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you know, when I heard you're coming out with a vocal solo album, that was quite a surprise. And it's been, so long since Talk, since Can't Look Away, and
Yes.
even since Jacaranda, really. And
Yeah.
so had no idea what to expect. Like, okay, he's coming out with a vocal album. And seriously, when I first heard the first single, it was like, wow, this is like the follow-up to Can't Look Away. This could be like 1991 now. Just amazing.
Yeah, I just, it was so long. I mean, since Can't Look Away, and I'd been planning to do a record, but never really thought too much about it for a couple of years because as you mentioned, I started working doing film scoring, and was lucky enough to get into that with no apprenticeship curve. I got in almost straight away, and I thought maybe I'd do 6-7 films and then get back and do an album. And here I am 30 years later. It still feels like yesterday. I mean, it still, Armageddon was one of my earliest movies, and it kind of still feels like yesterday, but it's like 50 films, hundreds of TV shows, and 30 years later. So I think that kind of that truncated the period that I felt was kind of wasted, because I'd been meaning to do a follow-up to Can't Look Away forever, but, yes, obviously, couldn't let that happen. We were so busy with that. And then when I started film, it thankfully went well, and I never stopped. And then I, quite recently, I did a tour with Jon Anderson and decided once that tour's finished, I'm doing an album. I have some movie stuff to do, but the minute that's finished, I'm going to get straight into doing an album. And I actually spoke to my agent and said, look, once I start this album, don't call me for any movie stuff, because I have to be disciplined. I have to do what I'm going to do, and not say, oh, all right, well, I'll take a break, do this movie, and come back to it, because that just never works out. And, if you start something like an album like this, if you take a break, it's funny, my wife once in a while used to come into the studio, and I go, oh, and she'd say, what's wrong? I'm so sorry. We're having construction here, so there's dust everywhere.
Sure.
I hope it doesn't look bad.
No. Well, it looks great from our angle. Yeah.
So, and she stopped walking in because she realized, I never complained about it, but she realized by, walking in, my focus might be stopped, and it might take some time to get back up to it. So if that was the case, just on those bringing me some tea or something, I can only imagine what the interruption from doing some stuff with Rick and John would be, or movies. So consequently, I said, okay, I'm absolutely not doing anything else. And we started the album about 18 months ago. I had germs everywhere. In fact, my wife used to say I'm like an alcoholic, except instead of having bottles in every room, it's just little pieces of manuscript with ideas on it.
Yeah.
So I was pretty ready to do it, and I never stopped until it was finished.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it certainly paid off. And like I said, it was announced that this is going to be a vocal album. So we all got in our heads, okay, this isn't another Jacaranda. This is something going back further.
Mhm.
But, when you said it's a vocal album, I don't think we can overstate just like how strong and prominent the vocals are on this album. I mean, you've
Oh,
got,
thank you.
yeah, but they're just everywhere. I mean, your mixing of the background vocals, these really interesting different sections. And I'm not even talking about the a cappella section of like Tumbleweed or something. That's something else.
Right.
But just the arrangement. I mean, it's like you always know when a Trevor Rabin chorus is upon you, right? Because the harmony backing vocals are just like immense.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I guess thanks because I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but it's
Well,
just what
it's a very impressive thing because like I'm saying, you sound like you were 30, 40 years ago. And it's what is that like for you, both in the writing of all of these different vocal parts and then the recording of it? And some of those voices are so high and low. I mean, what sort of effects or things do you have to do in the studio to get that?
I don't like to use tuning devices. I just find that's a really lazy way out. I'd rather, if it's out of tune, I'll do it again,
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that, I'd been doing films for decades and not really singing. I did a couple of things. I did a song, Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, as on the movie Banger Sisters. Banger Sisters, which was a film I did the score 4 years ago, and I just sang that animal song, Don't Be Misunderstood.
Mm.
But other than that, I'd really not sung at all for decades. And it was fortuitous that the tour with Rick and John happened because I had 200 shows to get the old vocal muscle in order. And I found that my range had actually improved.
Oh.
And at this age, you would expect it to go the other way, but I've been lucky that I can really reach notes. I find it not a difficult thing to hit notes that some time ago I might have had to try 2-3 times to get it spot on or it's sounding strained. So that was really useful. The other thing is when if you're an artist and you do your first album, and luckily you hope it's going to be successful. If it is, you've spent your whole life leading to that first album. And then if it's successful, then the record company immediately, we want another album now. So you don't have that lifetime to do the second album. So the second album is always a pressured thing.
Right.
And I think the thing that benefited this album was, although it's not my first album, I just hadn't done it for so long. It kind of felt fresh and new, and I really didn't feel any pressure. I hadn't signed to any record company or anything. I didn't know what I was going to do with the album. I just wanted to do it, and I got fantastic drummers on it, and a tremendous violinist to play on one of the tracks, and other backing vocalists to join in with me. And it just turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. And initially the working title was Demographic Nightmare, because I visit so many different areas. Right. And that was a little concerning at first, but I thought, my voice is my voice, and my guitar style is whatever that is my guitar style. And hopefully those things glue it all together. And if I sequence it well, it'll sound like a coherent and cohesive album. So here we are.
We are, yeah. Well, with the vocal arrangements that you have, I mean, that's been present to many of our listeners, even since 90125 with Leave It.
Right.
Had you arranged all of that yourself on Leave It, or did Trevor Horn have a hand in that too?
No, I arranged the vocals on particularly on that song, and Chris would have input into the vocal harmonies, and then obviously once Jon added to it, because he only came in right at the end of the album. Once he added to it, we added thereafter some stuff, and happily it did well.
Yeah, it seems like both you and Jon are blessed to have increasing vocal strength, and regardless of your age. You know, that seems to be true for both of you.
Yeah, you know, I was amazed with the Anderson, Rabin Wakeman tour, because we were only going to do a couple of shows, and we landed up doing 200, but his voice was consistent and his intonation was spot on every night. Yeah. He's a freak of nature.
Oh, well, in good company there. Well, let's get into a bit of the songs on the album, because it's a really exciting one. How did you come up with the idea, the inspiration to combine rhino sounds with the classical Indian form of Kondakal in the track Thandi?
Well, I've always loved that. I mean, it's just so, even the way they clap, you know, it's just the most enthralling thing. I mean, it interests me. I have a love for it, similar to what I have, because, you know, my dad was the first violinist for 15 years or something for the Janitor Symphony. So I grew up with classical music, and I absolutely, my home is enveloped by classical music at all times. You know, it's just, there's so much that I love that you can never get enough of it. And I felt the same way about that. And so that's what, actually, there's a much longer piece of, you know, but it was too long, and not, you know, I had to put my reasonable hat on and produce the thing. But and then the rhino sounds, I just looked around for rhino sounds, because obviously it's about the rhino poaching and destruction of this beautiful animal, which, you know, just turns my stomach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got to see Zakir Hussain in the Masters of Percussion recently, and it's just such a gorgeous performance. Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it truly is. And you have a touch of tabla here on Push. Is that an actual tabla player, or is that from the computer generated? Well, you know, when I finished that, not finished that song, when I presented that song, because it was during COVID, so I couldn't have Vinny come over to the house to play, which he did on Jacaranda. But we're very close, and I sent him the stuff. And when he played on it, it was just extraordinary. It changed my whole, I got so excited, re-excited about the song. Because his drumming was just, he's just such a ridiculous drummer. But what he did, he played those tablas, and the song's in 12/8, and those tablas are very definitely in 5/8. So they perfectly played, as only Vinny could do. But if you try and concentrate on it, it sounds like, oh, what's happening? It's out of time and stuff. But it meets up perfectly once the 5 and the 12 meet. I mean, it's just, he's one of those guys. It's just ridiculous. I actually started doing something in 5 with him, but it was too much and too confusing, so I got rid of it. I still got it somewhere. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's interesting, the sequencing, because I noticed the tabla comes in as the groove is going, then suddenly it disappears, and then cymbals come in, and then they disappear, and then the whole Vinny comes in with the whole kit. I said, that's the cheekiest thing I've ever seen, 5 against 12, but sounding like it's grooving, and it is grooving because he can do that. And then the cymbal takes over, and that's in 5. It's not like he relaxes the tension, you know. Profound drummer. Right, indeed, yeah. Tell me about the song Oklahoma. It's like the most cinematic song on the album, easily. Yeah, and I think there was a lot of influence from years of, I love working with orchestra. I mean, I grew up doing that, you know, and so that was just, seemed to be a natural inclusion on that song. But, you know, I remember waking up and putting on the TV and seeing, you know, the federal building being blown up in '95. And
it kind of freaked me out because, you know, when I came to America and eventually was able, you know, after a lot of difficulties and lawyers and proving that I can employ people and wouldn't be an issue, as opposed to being a burden on the state, I became an American citizen, and I was so proud and excited about it. And then to see that coming from South Africa's apartheid, I got my stomach kind of, I felt an emptiness, and it really kind of affected me. And those lyrics started coming to me, just words that seemed to make sense. And I never did anything about it because I certainly didn't want to do it at the time and exploit, you know, oh, we can make some money out of this tragedy. Sure. So I would never have gone near that. But now I feel it's an okay lag of time to document what happened and have some emotional connection, and you know, almost have it as a memorial, or not a memorial, you know, do it as a, what am I looking for?
Like a tribute.
A tribute to the people who were hurt by it.
Yeah, I get it. Right, absolutely. You know, it's funny, overall the songs on this album have this feeling musically of being bright and sunny, inspirational, you know, like Big Mistakes almost sounds like a Carpe Diem kind of anthem, as does Paradise. And then you listen to the lyrics and it's like, oh, hold on a minute. This lyrically, these are going into much darker places.
You know, my brother heard the album and he said, oh, it really sounds really kind of energetic and bright. And then he called me back 3 days later and he said, you're a dark bastard. He said, I just read the lyrics. I said, it's like a dichotomy. You got this music which is up and bright and the lyrics are downers.
Right.
I said, I'm sorry. It's just what, you know, what comes out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like social and even political commentary comes to the forefront of a lot of your lyric writing. Do you also ever veer toward for more like spiritual inspiration for your songs, or even in instrumentals, for example?
You know, it's funny. This is an amazing question. I've tried to meditate. And I remember John being on a plane and I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm just meditating. And I said, I tried to do it. This is years ago. I could never get into it. I could never stay with one thought. It would always go elsewhere. And, you know, going num 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 didn't help me. And I never did that. And then I realized whenever I'm in the studio or I have a guitar on or playing, that's the Zen moment for me. So, so I guess inspirationally, I think when I was doing Jacaranda, it was really just a focused. I was so calm. I think my blood pressure must have gone to nothing at that during that. On this album, it was more intense and more urgent for me. But I still feel that that area of meditation comes to me just when I'm in the studio. So. Yeah. No longer do I feel I'm lacking because I can't do it.
Well, that is a good step right there. Yeah. Yeah. Moving on to totally different. You've got some country chicken picking stuff here on Goodbye. Are you familiar with the Led Zeppelin song Hot Dog?
No. Which one is that? And I love Jimmy. I mean, I've known Jimmy we played together in Germany one night, and I'm still recovering. After the gig was where the recovering had to, you know, he's an amazing guy. Me, Chris, and Jimmy went out in Berlin one night, or Hamburg, I think, and it was kind of dangerous. But no, I don't know. What is that song?
Oh, it does some check it out. It's on In Through the Outdoor, their last studio album, and it's very much like Goodbye, your song Goodbye. It's a totally country western. It's called Hot Dog.
Hot Dog. I'm gonna check it out once.
Oh, check it out, because it seems totally in line with where you went with Goodbye. Except what I love about Goodbye is you do the country western thing so spot on, And then you go into like one of the best Trevor Rabin choruses on the album. It's just
thank
wonderful.
you. Yeah, that was going to be the kind of shock factor going from that into the chorus. But truth be known, when I was 17, 18 years old, and further on, before the band Rabbit, which was a band I was with in South Africa, happened, we used to play every night at a club before the band broke. But I used to do sessions every day, and I was booked every day, sometimes 7 days a week, and non-stop. And in South Africa, I guess it was a benefit is there's no specialization because it's a smaller industry than here, for example. And so the wrecking crew was a bunch of guys. In fact, Mutt Langer was the bass player, the producer, fantastic. Nice. And wow. And there was an incredible keyboard player, Henny Becker, who used to book me for bass sessions. I landed up playing bass in his jazz band while Rabbit was happening. And I was doing orchestration lessons. It was, a weird thing. But so I'm going off on a tangent there. But part of the thing in South Africa, country music is huge. And, international American artists, some Canadian, Anne Murray, but mostly American artists, and also a substantial amount of local artists, huge country stars there. So a lot of the sessions I did were country sessions. Wow. And I had to play country music, and I had to know the bends and how to do them. And eventually I got a pedal steel because that was even more authentic. I did that for a while and was loving it, but then I realized I got to get to the studio half an hour earlier to tune the bloody pedals and the strings. Right. It takes 10 times longer than, so I stopped doing that, but I still have one. I don't use it much, but I got into playing country on guitar and just absolutely loving it. So it's something I never did outside of doing those sessions. I've never really done country stuff, but I just loved it so much. And I thought, I'm definitely going to integrate it to this. All the great old country pickers. I mean, there's so many unbelievable guitar players. And even currently, even a guy like who you think is just an old crooner kind of thing and brilliant at it. But he's a great guitar player, is Vince Gill.
Yeah.
Phenomenal player. Right. So I love that stuff. Whenever we played in Nashville, I used to want to take my guitar and just go along the pubs and see if anyone wants to jam.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Well, definitely check out Hot Dog from In Through the Outdoor. You'll get a shot.
Oh, I'm doing that once we finish, definitely.
Sweet. So you got Vinny playing. Lou Molino, of course, plays a lot on this album, but you're credited with drums and percussion on 4 tracks. Are you playing a full drum kit, or how's that work for you?
Partly playing full drum kit. The problem was my son was so busy. He's a producer. In fact, at country, he's worked with Keith Urban, so
nice.
But he's so busy as a producer, and with COVID, it was very difficult. And so there were certain tracks. I've got my drum kit and the thing, and I've played drums. Not particularly well, but good enough to do. I did Goodbye actually, because all it is a bass drum doing this and then a bit of
right, yeah.
so that I can do, and then the chorus I just had these huge drums which weren't very challenging. I can't even imagine what Vinny would have done in there.
Right.
But it was not through choice, it was through necessity, and if it worked out I was going to keep it, and it worked out. I was happy with it, so I don't mind. I don't enjoy taking credit for doing percussion because with the real guys who are out there, it's a little arrogant to say, yeah, I play drums, because no, compared to Vinny and Lou, I do not. Or my son, I do not.
Right. So do you have hopes to bring this to the live stage and do a little touring? And if so, do you think you'd do some shows in the States?
Well, the first tour would be the States if we go there, if we go to touring. But it's so new, this, it's funny, I kind of finished the album and only then sent I didn't do the old record thing with a lawyer and a manager. I played one company
Right.
against the
Yeah. You just
I
went
lo-
inside out, right?
Yeah, I went to Thomas at Inside Out, and I really liked him. He was interested in doing an ARW album, and which I didn't want to do. It's the old story. Yes is like a beach whale. It's impossible to get in the ocean. When it's in, it swims great, but impossible to get in. So I didn't want to get it into the ocean
Yeah, don't
as
kill
a
the whale.
producer.
Yeah.
As a producer. So, and we were having such fun touring. We just wanted to continue with that. But he said to me, if you do anything, anything you do, please consider me. So I didn't even go anywhere else. I mean, I've never done this before. You know, my lawyer was saying, "You're crazy. Let me chop it." And I said, "No, I want to play it to Thomas, and if he likes it and is interested, I would love to go with him." And I called him, sent it to him. He said, "Yeah, I like it." And I said, "It's yours." And so that happened. So the mechanism of getting into that and stuff is it's happened so quickly. So I haven't caught up yet with,
Right.
we're doing what we're doing right now. And I'm kind of catching up with all of that. And we'll definitely talk about touring. I've always toured. There's nothing I love more than playing. So I'm hoping that happens.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah. Do you have time for just a few more questions?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. Yeah. It just seems like all the time your extensive history with Yes has just been kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like it's gotten you in front of so many people, your songs out there into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not to mention the great friendships you have with various band members now.
Yes.
But it seems like with the release of every album, that came with a lot of tension and strife. Is that true?
Yeah, very political band, and a very difficult band because, 90125 started as a band called Cinema.
Right.
And it was Chris, me, Alan, and Tony Kaye. And we rehearsed for 9 months and got it sounding so tight and good, which was a benefit because once we went on the road, it was no starting out something. We were tight as shark's butt, And at the end of the album, Jon joined the band. Jon heard stuff. He loved it. We invited him to sing on some stuff. I absolutely loved it. And I remember the record company saying, "Are you okay being fired as the singer?" I said, "I'm absolutely delighted. I have no ego as a singer. I'm happy to do," and there's a million backing vocals on it, and I sing some lead.
Right.
I said, "Having Jon is an absolute asset." So absolutely. But then the thing came to, well, the record company want to call it Yes. And I said, "Well, it's Cinema. It's nothing like the past Yes. Why do that?" And then the argument came, well, if you're going to do a 2.5-hour tour, you're going to probably want to play some of the old stuff because 4 of the members, blah, blah, blah. And I was still a bit edgy about it. And, even the album cover, I didn't want to go Roger Dean on it,
Right.
And anyway, we didn't get to call it Cinema. And it was probably fortuitous because I can't even remember who it was. It's, 5,000 years ago. But we got a letter from someone, a lawyer, I guess, saying, you can't use the name Cinema. This band's name is Cinema. Basically, they were saying, give us 50 grand, we'll go away, or whatever it was. And at that point, I said, Ahmet Ertegun was screaming for calling it Yes. And at that point, I called him. I said, okay. And Ahmet said, you're making a good choice, my boy.
Yeah, you're just like signing up for that whole legacy then, though. It's boy, quite a piece. And I'm curious, what happened in the years between Big Generator and Union? There was some involvement with Roger Hodgson during that time, and
it was a strange period that Jon went on with Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe,
right.
And I had no problem with any of it because I, at that point, had scheduled and had started Can't Look Away. So I wasn't even looking at what was going on. Yes was something that was now on hold, and I wasn't going to be doing it until if it came up again. I was so focused on doing a solo album. I finished the solo album, I think, did I finish the tour? Or maybe it was, I'm not sure if I finished the tour before meeting Roger, but then Roger out of the blue called me and said, I've been listening to your stuff. It'd be great to get together and work. He turned up here in an RV, plugged into my home, and stayed here for 2 weeks. And it was
wow.
And the nicest person you could ever meet. Have you spoken to him?
I have not. No.
Oh, you must. He's a phenomenal human being.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, and we worked together, and we wrote probably as much as 2/3 of an album if I go back and look at everything. And one is on the Talk album, but and then I went back to Roger, and this is after 9/11. I can't look away. Went back to his house near Sacramento, Nevada City. Beautiful studio, has a beautiful complex there, and we recorded and worked together there. And then during this period, Chris and Alan, well, mostly Chris, was very annoyed about what had happened with Yes, and Jon going on there. And he was talking about suing, and I wasn't involved in that, so I can't really comment on that, because I just wanted to carry on doing music. It's like it's no time for this other crap, And then as we were getting to a point of doing something with Roger got divorced, and things kind of went a little left field. And then I got a call from Clive Davis saying he's doing another ABWH album, and it's going great, and he needs some songs. So knowing record executives, I read that as Clive Davis has got a record that has a problem and he needs a single.
And this is Clive Davis, who said owner of Lonely Heart didn't have potential, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Although he's got a track record, he doesn't have to worry too much.
Fair enough.
But I sent him Lift Me Up, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to do this myself, but if you guys like it, maybe, I can hear Jon singing it, and if AWH want to do it, let me know, and then I can make a decision, but I can't promise it right now. And to cut a long story short, the next thing is I do 3 songs or so for this album that is ABWH, where the producer has basically replaced Rick and Steve with session musicians. I have nothing to do with it whatsoever. I haven't even heard it.
Right.
I give these 3 songs on. I make sure the mastering guy understands this is a kind of weird sellotaped thing, and make it sound good. I don't even know if I've ever really heard the whole album. And then came this corporate rock thing, and the first rehearsal, everyone went in like this, I mean, money is a slave, so that's kind of what happened. And
but then Rick started cracking some jokes, and probably
oh my God, and Rick started playing as well, and I thought, my God, I could play with this guy forever. I could just sit with him. We used to sit at rehearsal and just play things, and
I can love to get some tapes of that.
Oh my goodness, it was just sound check was just ridiculous. It was often me and Rick just screwing around, and then we got to rehearse. But Rick and I became just such close friends, which led to ARW, because both Rick and I've heard him say in the past, my bucket list was for Trevor and I to work together again. So I'm glad we did. But Union turned out to be quite a fun experience. It was there were certainly oil and water issues and things that were tough, but it was a round stage, and
there was distance.
There was distance. People looking the other way.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that I thought Miracle of Life was like just the pinnacle song for that project, because it seemed maybe the most appropriate song that married the 2 eras of Yes, and I thought it was a shame you didn't play it live, because I could just see Steve playing the mandolin on that part. It would have been great.
One day I'll tell you an off the record story about why we didn't play that.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Because it's what is that time? At some, if you email me out, I can tell you off the record what happened with Miracle Life. We did rehearse it,
Oh,
but
wow.
it didn't happen. I think that's certainly my favorite contribution to that record, but
Yeah.
I don't even consider it a record. It's two weird things, you know, kind of
Frankenstein kind of beast, right?
yeah, stuffed together. And I really haven't listened to the album. I enjoyed most of the songs I did, and
did your relationship with Steve evolve at all, like from then to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or was that even just making it worse?
well, there was kind of a coldness, and I just didn't pursue it. I just left it out and had so much fun with Rick. It just didn't even bother me. I mean, little things like John recommended we should play acoustics. You know, you can't have a million solos. It'd be like Airplane when everyone's hitting that one woman, you know, the part of me. And so it was, I said to John, you know, that's a good idea. Alan and Bill did a joint solo together. And I said, yeah, Steve and I can do acoustics solo together. And Steve said, I'm going to do clap. I said, well, you can do the clap and, you know, we can integrate it. I'll play along with you. And he said, it's not called the clap, it's called clap. And at that point, I said, okay, separate solos. We'll be on either side. See you after the tour. So it was quite a funny thing.
That reminds me, I wanted to ask, what song of yours do you think most represents your love of John McLaughlin?
Oh, probably, you know, he has these very fast pentatonics he sometimes does. And I suppose in a small way, Shoot High, Aim Low has some of that in there.
Okay.
There's a little bit.
Nice.
But I love John. There's so many great guitarists, you know. I think
Yeah.
everyone gets washed over, you know.
Yeah. Were you involved at all with the live from the Apollo ARW album?
Yes, I was, although, and it's completely my fault. It was basically mixed by Paul. I mean, I was obviously there doing it, but Paul Linford is a phenomenal mixer, and he did the 5.1, and he did an unbelievable job. I then came in and screwed it up because the audience was very soft in the mix. So it unrealistically soft in the mix. It didn't sound like a real show.
Oh.
So I added, well, I lifted the audience without affecting the sound as much as possible and got it to a reasonable point. But then I added some other audience from other Yes shows. And that was a big mistake. So I hate the audience, and that was my mistake. So I love it, but I also hate what I did for it.
I was going to ask you, with all due respect, if it's possible to re-release without the added audience, because it's such a great performance.
You know, that's not a bad idea. I should definitely. Paul has all the information, so I should ask him to just do it and take out the crowd. People will enjoy it much more. It annoys me, so I can't imagine how it annoys people who know it's overly heated.
Exactly, yeah. You know, John did mention that you guys had recorded about an hour's worth of music at some point. Did that go on to other people's solo projects, or was that just hyperbole?
I think it was mostly hyperbole, because we'd been working on a bit of stuff, certainly not an hour, but we eventually, because before the very last tour, the management had said, you know, you guys haven't done anything recording wise. You're doing another American tour, and it's soon after the last one. Logically speaking, what's the tour for? So, you know, I grabbed something I had in the past called Fragile, which I thought was a nice song, but John sang on it, and Rick played some beautiful piano on it, as he does. And it went as far as going on a show on LA radio, and that's where it ended. And then at the end of that tour, that was it. And we had great fun, and we said goodbye, and that was it. Rick and I, at the end of it, decided we got to do an instrumental album, just piano and acoustic guitar. And that we we still want to do that. You know, time is always, it's amazing. You know, we talk about the 30 years. It's like, where does this time go on? It's just, so yeah, so that's kind of not really, there's nothing really that was done.
I know your original version of Fragile is a bonus song on
Yes.
New Rio. Do you think there's ever a way that you'd release the ARW version, you know, make it sound proper and release that to the public?
I doubt it. You know, I wouldn't see the point in it. I might be wrong.
Well, your fans would definitely see the point of it, but I can understand if you've got other things on your front burner.
I mean, if it was something that was wanted, I have the master. I could even remix it. I promise there'll be no audience.
You know, I saw your name credited on the first Seal album that Trevor Horn produced. Do you recall? I've never been able to pick you out though. Do you know what songs you were on?
I played on Crazy. Is it Crazy?
Yeah.
I play on Crazy, and it's funny. I hadn't seen him, and I saw him at the Prince's Trust at Wembley years after, and what a sweet, nice guy, and what a talent.
Yeah, I saw him a couple months ago, and he's touring a lot of the material on those first two albums. And actually, Trevor Horn is the band leader.
Oh yeah,
and opened with a Little Bugle set as well, doing Owner of Lonely Heart. But
what a bloody beat. It's so funny, you know. They say if you do something and it's successful, you have many cousins. If you do something and it doesn't succeed, you have no friends. And it's so funny with Owner of the Lonely Heart. I see there's something on Jon's email where on his website where someone's done a painting of the soundbite or part soundbite of Owner of the Lonely Heart, and Jon signed it, and Trevor's playing Owner of the Lonely Heart, and I think back to 1981 when I wrote it on the
toilet. Everyone's taking credit for that moment, Trevor, that you were on the toilet. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's human nature, right?
Right. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us. I mean, I could just go on for hours with various questions, but overall, I just want to encourage all of our listeners to go out and get Rio, because it's a fantastic album, fantastic return to form for Trevor. And you know, you mentioned with the film soundtracks, like once you get into something, you just kind of get really focused on it. Now that you've gone back to the vocal rock world, do you think you might get in a series of more of these kinds of albums?
Oh yes, it's my next step. Is I've got so much kind of, you know, my pockets are overflowing. I need to do it. So that's my next step, definitely.
Excellent. Yeah, just throw some time in for Rick there for that duet album. That would be
absolutely. We're looking forward to that.
Well, thank you for your time, Trevor. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Enjoy your day.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.